What do you think it'll take for the stay-at-home to end?
Well, so I think there are three key preconditions for the stay-at-home to end. First, the number of cases just have to come down. Everyone's now become experts on curves. We're all seeing these curves on the internet, on social media. You have to be on the downside of the curve to where the cases are coming down. That's the first thing that's got to happen. Secondly, we've got to have widespread testing. We can't send people back to work until we know if they have the disease or not, if they're infectious or not. And the only way to know that is to test people. And we have to have, it has to basically be possible for all of us to get tested. Now, what's coming along soon are what they call serological tests, tests of antibodies. We can tell if you have it or if you had it. So are you immune now? We're going to need that, kind of basically so that anyone can get one so you can tell how safe someone is or isn't. And then finally, we're going to need to make sure that the hospitals in every place that we're going to go back to work in are staffed up and have the gear, because when we go back to work, there are going to be flare-ups, right? We're going back to work not in an environment where this is over, but where the risk is down, but not zero. In that case, there will be places where there are outbreaks. When you want to make sure that when there's an outbreak in a city, that city can treat the patient successfully and have the capacity. So I think those are the three preconditions that are going to have to be present before we change from where we are now to a different mode.
You think and talk about this all the time. Do you have a sense when that might be?
I think, as Dr. Fauci says, the virus decides, not us. Look, I think probably we're talking about, later in May, June, maybe. But again, I'm much less focused on the date than the preconditions. You got to have the curve going down, pretty far down. You got to have the testing. You got to have the gear. And the problem with 2 and 3 is the testing and the gear turns on the administration doing a better job with the response than they have. I'd put it this way. There's no reason why we shouldn't be able to be in a place to do this at some point in time in late May or June. The question is, will we be in a place to do that? That's a harder thing to know.
I mean, what you're saying is the president has to just take control of the purchasing process and use the force of the federal government to mass buy the right supplies and then deploy them across the country?
Yes, that is exactly what I'm saying. And again, as I said before, he has done that in the area of national security. He has done that, in fact, in protecting the border. So it seems to me that it's not a philosophical objection in the abstract that keeps him from doing it now. I think it's just an effort to, first of all, maybe not bump up against allies in the manufacturing industry. Maybe it's just an effort to kind of say, hey, I want this to rest on the governor's shoulders. I don't really want to own this problem. But, it's a cliche, but Harry Truman said the buck stops here. The buck stops on Donald Trump's desk. I don't think there's any way out of it. I don't care how many times he stands in the briefing room and says, I'm not a shipping clerk. We're the suppliers of last resort. It's up to the governors. I think if you're sitting at home right now and you're worried about whether or not if you get sick, the people in the hospital have the things to treat you, you don't really care about the president pointing his finger at a governor and saying it's your governor's fault. And it's just not. There's just no way that the governors can fix this.
Say more about that. There's no way the governors can fix this. Why?
Well, because the governors don't have the power that the president has to order the manufacturers to make things. The governors don't have the power to mandate that we transition manufacturing capacity from one thing to another. And the governors each will then compete with one another, and the ones that are the most successful will get the gear in their state, whether really that's where the most cases are or aren't, or the cases are or aren't right now. And I understand kind of it's one level, everyone kind of goes, yeah, I want my state to have the stuff, because sooner or later it's coming here. But if you take a step back, what you really want is you want the materials, the key equipment, in the right places at the right time. If your state's one of the states that's going to see this 8 weeks from now, you really want it where it's worse right now. Governor Cuomo has been really clear about this. He said basically, hey, I'm asking medical workers from across the country to come to New York because we have a crisis now. And I'll tell you, we'll return the favor at some point in time in the future. We'll send medical workers from New York to your state when the crisis comes to your place. And that's obviously one way of doing this. That's kind of a state cooperative way of doing it. It's what's happening right now, but it's obviously not the best way to do it. For people who are lawyers like me, I said a couple weeks ago on Chris Hayes' show, and he's kind of seized on this. This is an Articles of Confederation response. This is what it would look like if we'd never set up a federal government, instead had a loose alliance among the states, the way that our country worked in 1786, where we said, hey, we don't really have a strong federal government. We'll let the states kind of cooperate on projects. That's what we're looking at right now. And there's a reason why we abandoned that as a system of government 230 years ago and said, no, we really want a strong federal government when the country's under attack, when the country's facing crises. That's where we are right now.